I got a list of guys that I think is now or never for. It might be never or never for some of them. And then could we even think about Jalen Ramsey back to Jacksonville? I'll talk about all of that today on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what it is, Jacksonville Jaguar fans. That's what my uncle used to say. Not what is it or how you doing. He'd walk in and say what it is, and everybody knew exactly what it was he was talking about. And hopefully y'all do too, since you know me, because you come here every day. We like to thank the everydayers for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Locked On Jaguars is your team every day. We thank you for making it your first listen. Wherever you find your podcast, make sure you tap in and you will find us. That's whether you watch or listen. We will be there. All right, let me tell you what you're going to get since you're here. Jalen Ramsey with a question mark. That's where we'll end the show. My answer might surprise a bunch of y'all. But the subject came up, so we'll at least talk about the possibilities of that. Present and future alignment. That taps into the Jalen Ramsey situation also. You got to set the temperature. If you want, you got to put a thermostat in your program, man, and you got to set it, and you have to be consistent. I learned that yesterday from a question I asked James Gladstone, and that consistency has to be there whether you're winning or losing, and you have to identify the players that you're willing to do that with. That's going to tie into the first subject also. Now or never, guys. This isn't something that they talked about directly, and they shouldn't. This isn't something that it's obvious. This is more of me having my finger on the pulse of the team and trying to read the room and telling you there are certain guys that I think have a very small, slim, outside looking through the window chance of helping this team. They have a chance and they have an opportunity. It's all about competition. And sometimes competition is created and opportunity is created by guys not being available. So I think the Jaguars are in a situation where they drafted certain people that are good enough to still be on the team, but not good enough so far for them to overly think about investing into the future of this ball club by either giving them an extension or keeping them around, making it obvious that they're going to keep guys around a little bit longer. They've signed some guys in free agency in the prior regime that, quite frankly, just weren't guys that this regime probably would have even signed, but they owe those folks a lot of money or have either paid a lot of money, and it would cost a whole bunch just to let certain people go. And they're going to have to figure out how they get contributions from some of those people too. And then there are other guys. There are other guys that are on the team, and this is an opportunity and a chance to show that, look, man, I'm something. You might have not have picked me. You might have not have been. I might have not have been the one you wanted, but I'm the one you inherited. But look, I'm willing to adapt and do things differently. Scouting department guys are going through that right now. If you saw the presser yesterday, the pre-draft luncheon, you basically heard James Gladstone talk about how his process was different, but how he's been pleasantly surprised at how guys have gotten and jumped on board. That goes along with the lack of 30-30 visits. That goes along with everything. And the reason why is this. They do a good job of telling you a little bit about their process, but they do also a really good job of not telling you too much about the process. And I'm going to tell you why I think they do that before I start naming players. I believe they do that because if I tell you what I expect, then you'll act like what you think I want you to be. And that's not authentic. Therefore, I just want to be around you. And then what comes out will tell me whether or not you're intangibly rich for us. And see, that's where I'm going with it. Liam Cohen yesterday, and this is the thing, they've kind of caught on to the media here a little bit because every media group is different based on that geographical area, what they've gone through, the history of that franchise, the history of the past interactions with the brass. I can tell you right now that a lot of people are very, very happy that their job is being made up, is allowed to be done a lot easier by people just being good at communication. And people that are good at communication are also good at not over communicating. And I think the Jaguars are that way. they haven't given a hint about any players that they quote unquote don't like, if there are players that they don't like. But Liam Cohen yesterday did do something, and I'm a part of that media that I'm talking about that can be real slick and come up with little ways of reasoning things. And I'm going to tell you something he did yesterday. Somebody asked him, I think it was Mia O'Brien, MOB. I think Mia asked him about the wide receivers. It may not have been Mia. It could have been somebody else. If it was, I'm sorry. I didn't look backwards if I didn't give you credit for it. But he said, outside of Brian Thomas Jr., who have you seen that's going to be able to give you basically something like that, the playmaking ability? And Liam Cohen said, right now, he mentioned that they were going to look in the draft, but he said, just to think about it right now, he said Parker Washington and Diami Brown, they give us guys that we believe. And right then and there, I probably blanked out and stopped listening to some of the stuff he said. And I thought about Gabe Davis. And I thought about the amount of money that Gabe Davis is making. And I thought about the role that Gabe Davis was signed to play here in Jacksonville. And it's not even a calendar year later. It's about one calendar year later from the day that he was signed. And the new coach was asked to mention two additional other additional wide receivers outside of Brian Thomas Jr. that he believed if they had to line up tomorrow could help this team. And he didn't mention Gabe Davis, and he mentioned two other people. So that's three. That means at the least, Gabe Davis might be the most expensive wide receiver 4 in the NFL. Thank you, Trent Baalke. It's not Gabe's fault. I'm glad he got his money. He's a local kid too, right here from Nassau County, about 5 miles away from me. I'm glad he got paid. I'm not glad the Jaguars were the ones that are paying him and they don't expect him a year later to even do a whole bunch for him. In fact, by Liam mentioning that there are guys in the draft that have different areas that they believe are good attributes, and they look forward to adding to that room. Even with Gabe Davis, they're going to keep 2 extra receivers other than the 2 that were already mentioned. So they'll keep 6. So, yeah, they need to add 2 guys. Or maybe they like somebody that's there in development, but they'll at least add 1 guy in what is a pretty deep wide receiver room or group in the draft. But it still doesn't stop us from coming to the conclusion that Gabe Davis does not have a long future here in Jacksonville. Pretty easy to come up with that conclusion when he's making a bunch of money, and normally you like the money and the roles to line up with players. That's usually a pretty good indication of whether or not you're tracking to have those 2 things marry each other in the right way. Apparently, that's not the case, and they've already identified that because they didn't even mention his name. Now, I'm not going to say that Liam didn't misspeak because he didn't say Gabe Davis. So I'm not going to say that on the fly right there in that heat of the moment question where he was, trying to give us a really good answer, that he didn't just kind of miss Gabe Davis. But that's the point. If you can kind of miss a dude, you're paying umpteen millions of dollars, double-digit millions in the teens. If you just kind of miss him, that means he's not really on your mind. That means you're kind of missing your number 2 guy and turned him into your number 4. Or maybe you didn't miss him at all. Maybe you just aren't that big on Gabe Davis. We'll talk about Gabe Davis and more guys that may have to fall into the line of present and future, or present or future, or not present or not future when it comes to being in alignment with the things that the Jaguars want to do. We'll bring all of that up here in the second segment on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by LinkedIn Talent Solutions. As a small business owner, I've done it twice. Your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means it's time to hire. When it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free and share it with your network and get qualified candidates all in one place. Here's how it works. Post your job. LinkedIn's new feature can help you write your job descriptions and then get your job quickly in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip. Add the hiring hashtag frame to your profile picture to double your reach to qualified candidates. No wonder 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helped them find high quality hires. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Moving ahead here on Locked On Jaguars, where it is your team every day. Thank y'all for joining us. We really, really do appreciate you. Look out for that Locked On NFL mock draft too. That's I think it's scheduled to be released on the 17th. Go have a good time, man. Have at it. Get on out there and watch and see who your boy picked for this team, and then y'all can give me all the grief y'all want to give me, but that's all right. It's going to be out tomorrow. Make sure you check that out wherever you get your podcast. Gabe Davis was the one guy that I thought about and I mentioned for this segment. He's not going to be the only offensive player. In fact, I'm going to name about 5 or 6 of them on offense, and 1 or 2 on defense, maybe 3 on defense. But these are players that I believe where there's a serious question about whether they're here for now, whether they're here for the future, or either one of those things. Gabe Davis is somebody I believe they're paying him. They've already given him a certain amount of money. It hurts them to cut him, keep him around. What does it hurt to have competition from a veteran? You get injuries. You get Gabe Davis is a guy that could pop in right for you, and he could challenge the seam a little bit, and he's also a pretty good blocker. So there's a role for a guy like that. He may fret a little bit about playing time, because they all do, but he'll get a chance to compete. I guarantee you with this new staff, if he's not playing, he's going to know why he's not playing. And it's going to be obvious. I think they'll play him if he earns it. But in case he doesn't earn it, he's still going to be on this team. It doesn't do the Jaguars any good to trade him because you're going to need reliable depth on the team. You're going to need guys who have just caught balls. They've just already paid him a whole bunch more money than he's seemingly worth. You can't get it back. You're going to end up paying the price for it anyway, so you might as well keep him around even though you're paying him too much money. You can't change the fact that you're paying him too much money. That's the only reason you cut people, especially people the only reason you cut a guy that you're paying a bunch of money is if he's going to bellyache and make things bad for the team, and that's not what you do. So, and I don't think Gabe Davis is that type of person, especially if he gets a fair shake and a fair shot and other guys just outperforming. But see, that's also what competition does. Competition lifts up the whole thing, man. I don't ever want to hear a dude the only reason you need to be complaining about playing time on a losing team is if you're not playing much, because you could at least then be saying, well, if they were playing me, we could be doing a lot better. But if you're playing a lot and your team is losing, ain't nobody feeling sorry for you when you lose your job. And Gabe Davis had some drops last year, so excuse me, but nobody's going to feel sorry for him. They replaced him in Buffalo with, I think the kid's name is Hollins. Whoever that kid is that shows up in 20-degree weather wearing no shoes and shorts. He seems like the kind of dude that's going to beat you out for your job too, just in case. But I'm just telling you, he shows up to the game like the pool boy or something. And you're like, dude, 1, put on some clothes because I ain't built like that. But 2, put on some clothes because it's cold outside. But that's who they replaced him with, and they were happy with him up in Buffalo, right? Gabe just wasn't worth the money, man. And, that's a bulky mistake that has to happen. Somebody else that has to earn some money, as we continue talking about now or never guys, is Eric Armstead. And I'm not concerned whether he's a future guy or not. I'm just concerned whether the Jaguars are going to get anything that resembles what they got when they had Calais Campbell. Now, to Armstead's credit, he is like one of the top men of the year dudes in the NFL. He as a matter of fact, that stuff is real, man. His attitude towards the community and all of that stuff, that's not something that he does just for recognition. And you can tell he does that because he's just a really, really good guy. And there's always room for really, really good people on the roster. But there's even more room for really, really good people who can really, really still play football. And I think he can still really, really play football. And now he's got a staff of people that are at least very familiar with his game. And they're going to have him doing things that he should be primarily doing. I know a lot of people got mad last year when they said he's always at big end. I saw a lot of tape from San Francisco where he lined up at big end. It's just that he wasn't lined up at big end while he was also not playing well as a 3 technique and while the team couldn't stop the run. And the Jaguars needed help inside. And whenever you put him outside, that means you're taking one of your really good players that are outside and having them on the bench. And I think that's what got Jaguar fans infuriated the most. They wanted to see him inside where he played primarily played for his entire career, and they didn't want to see him make you take one of your better players off the field. So yeah, there's room for it, and the leadership is needed, and I do think this team is going to be a lot better. They're going to have, I think guys will play a lot and they'll do a lot of rotating, but it won't be rotating like the hockey style just to be rotating. It'll be a good rotation, the normal NFL rotation that guys have in this league instead of what you've seen. There's a way to get guys rest without resting them 3 or 4 plays into the game. I'll never get over that. But Eric Armstead is another player that has a little bit of something to prove. I'll tell you somebody else, Darnell Savage. He was obviously not a cap casualty. They didn't get rid of him after 1 year. And safety's still a position of need. I don't think he's going to play in the slot. And I've heard some people say he'll start in the slot while Jordan Lewis starts outside opposite of Tyson Campbell. And it'll be Dewey Wingard and then the cat they signed from Houston at the safety position, Mr. Murray, Eric Murray. I like that, and I think they like Dewey. I think the new staff, Dewey's a likable dude, man. Especially like Anthony Campanile, he loves somebody like that. Dewey plays hard, man. I was a little hurt that he got hurt last year because he actually looked really, really good in training camp last year. And I ain't saying a lot because the team was 4-13 team, so maybe anybody who looked good in training camp was looking good because they were practicing against 4-13 people and a 4-13 lame duck coaching staff. But you know what I mean if you watch Dewey Wingard. He's the kind of dude that you always see. When you see teams that win, they always have somebody just like that on their team. Special teams can come in at a pinch, play free, strong safety. I like him. I honestly think, for me, that the lineup probably looks more like Jarian Jones at slot with Jordan Lewis outside early and then them flip-flopping on third down and putting Lewis close to the line where he's been really, really good his entire career, and starting Darnell Savage at safety along with Eric Murray or whoever they get in the draft in the second or third round. But Dewey can be your third safety, that when you go to a third safety situation, if you go to a big nickel or if you're going to dime or any situation where you need an extra DB on the field, but he ain't necessarily covering receivers. He's there mainly to man the middle of the field and tackle. There are a lot of situations like that, and that's why I think Dewey Wingard is going to do good. So that's what I believe. So I believe the guy to watch is Darnell Savage, because if they like Wingard and they also like Jarian Jones, then that leaves Savage as a dude that's kind of like the dude that's just sitting there out of position. He plays safety, a little slot. The versatility is cool. But that kind of puts him in a situation where he's probably playing the last year of his deal. I think he signed a 3-year deal anyway, and the last year wasn't guaranteed. Other guys on offense, now or never, in my opinion, Tank Bigsby. This is year 3. This is the year they're going to either figure out that you're going to be a part of their backfield or you're not. Travis Etienne is also going to be a free agent. So that would mean if they don't add another running back this year and they go in with you guys at 1 and 2, at the end of the year, if they move on from Etienne, now they're looking at you after your 3rd year and you were a 3rd-round pick. Now there's another decision that needs to be made. So I think this year Tank Bigsby is going to either let you know that he is a capable second starter, or he's going to be relegated to a guy that's going to be the physical back of a team and spend the rest of his career being a number 2/number 3 running back. This is the year you got to show it. And there's a difference between being a solid 2 or a second starter or a 1B than being a dude that's a 2B or a 3. I think he's going to play in the league for the next 7 years. The question is, this year will determine how he's viewed and how he plays. And a lot of this goes into whether the Jaguars win or not. Winning making a small contribution on a winning team is probably in some cases just as good as making a big contribution on a team that doesn't win. I'm going to name a few more players, then I'll name a player that isn't here that people are curious of whether or not he'll be back, and that's Jalen Ramsey. We'll discuss that more in the third segment here on Locked On Jaguars. Today's show is sponsored by FanDuel. That's right, man. The NBA playoffs are almost here. The play-in game actually started last night, and FanDuel gives new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props. From three-pointers to steals to assists, FanDuel has so many ways to bet your favorite player props. Don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets. That's $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins at FanDuel. And make sure at FanDuel you do this too, man. And this is very, very important. You understand that this is the playoffs and they're not sitting guys. There's not going to be any rest or load management. Make sure you know that when you go over to FanDuel.com to try to win your $250 in bonus bets. All right, man. So running it down here on Locked On Jaguars, where it is your team every day. Talking about guys, man, where it's now or never. I'm going to put these two guys together. We mentioned Jalen Ramsey. We have mentioned Darnell Savage. We haven't mentioned Jalen Ramsey. We will mention Jalen Ramsey. We mentioned Darnell Savage. We mentioned Gabe Davis. I'm going to put both tackles, Walker Little and Anton Harrison, on notice. This is either going to be the year that you guys establish yourselves, or it's going to be the year that you let them know that you're not going to ever be able to establish yourselves as full-time starters. And it'll determine whether or not they move on from you, whether they try to trade you or try to start drafting to replace you. That's just period, point blank. Pretty much self-explanatory. We've also mentioned Tank Bigsby already, so I'll switch over to the defense real quick before we start talking about Jalen. This is definitely a year for Devin Lloyd, Ventrell Miller, and Chad Muma to all prove something. The Jaguars could very well be in, if they don't draft one this year, they could be in a market for a linebacker as quick as next season. What if they get a bargain on one in like round 3 or round 4? I think they'd do it because you got two guys that are up for contract. That's Lloyd and Muma. And then Ventrell Miller, he'll be in, I think, the last year of his deal because he was a 4th or 5th round pick. So, yeah, I think if you start looking at it, they'll determine whether or not those dudes are good enough for them this year. And if they're not, you'll probably see them try to move on. Maybe they've already made that determination. If they draft a linebacker on day 1, or not day 1, but day 2, I'm telling you, man, it could sneak up on you. If Jihad Campbell is sitting there at the end of the first round, I would not be surprised if the Jaguars move up and take him because he's just that good. And there are some drafts where he gets into the 20s. I think the Jaguars would do it because he's just too good. I wouldn't mind him doing that at all. He'd just be too good. That's if they didn't address the linebacker position in the first round already. Like if they get Abdul Carter, who's going to probably play stack on at least 2 of the 3 downs, they wouldn't do this. So I'm talking about if they didn't take Carter, if they didn't take Jalen Walker, that if Jahid Campbell is sitting there because of the future, the way the future looks for the Jaguars, that they could be all 3 linebackers, I believe, have to show something. Devon Hamilton has to show something. You notice I mentioned more defensive players than offensive players. I think he has to show that he's going to be on this team in the future. I already think they're going to try to replace him this year, or at least get somebody that they can start grooming to replace him. But remember, 335-pound dudes that know how to play. Devon Hamilton might not be what you want, but that guy's that big, they don't just walk around in the street. So the Jaguars, they're not going to give him away for nothing. Now let's address the other elephant in the room, Jalen Ramsey. Jalen Ramsey has mutually agreed to Miami Dolphins to seek a trade. Everywhere that Jalen has been traded from, Jaguars, the Rams, they've helped facilitate him to go to where Jalen wants to go. I don't think he has a no trade clause, but I do think at some point teams have been able to give him that kind of grace, right? Where they'll let him pick a few teams and see if they can make it work out. The difference is now when he left Jacksonville, it involved 2 first-round picks and a 3rd. And then when he left the Rams, I think it involved a 3rd-round pick And a lot of that, it has nothing to do with, this is going to be a day 3 pick. And I don't think it has a whole bunch to do with whether or not he's worth a day 3 pick. I think it has something to do with, he's like 29 years old. He can still play at an extremely high level. He's still one of the 5 or 6 best cornerbacks in this league. And on any day could be the best cornerback in the league for one game if you need him to. He ain't old. He ain't slowed down. There's some talk that he wants to now move over and switch over to free safety full time. And that would be something, because I think he could be an all pro at free safety as well. Kind of like Charles Woodson, kind of like there's been some guy, Eric Berry was a dude that could kind of move and do both a little bit. So you've had guys that have done, Ronnie Lott, of course, back in the day, but there are guys who can do both. And I think he's one of them. There were some people that thought he was going to be a better free safety than a corner anyway. So it'll be a day 3 pick because of the money situation. Jalen probably wants to go to a contender, but I can tell you this. I do know people that know him very personally, and he said a lot of nice things about Jacksonville over the years. He just had he had a problem with 2 or 3 people. It wasn't the fans. It was 2 or 3 people. I got to talk to him because I think he's confused about one of the people that he has a problem with and one of the people that he didn't. And that's some information that I'll share with him personally. But basically somebody he didn't care for, cared for him, and somebody he does care for didn't. And I know that for a fact. But would he be welcome here? I don't think it comes down to fans. I don't think it comes down to Shad or Tony. I think Shad Khan has been around. He's a billionaire. Business is business, man. He gets that more than anybody. You know, he probably saw Jalen get his money and his Super Bowl trophy and said, well played. That's the way winners think. You know what I'm saying? I do think it would come down to what's on their board as far as Jacksonville. What do they see the vision of this team being and looking like, right? And the fact that Anthony Campanile coached in Miami, the fact that Liam Cohen was in L.A., and the fact that James Gladstone, ultimately the GM that's going to have a big part of the decision, they were in L.A. too. So their opinion of Jalen Ramsey might be different than the opinion of a lot of people who were here, including Tony Baselli, when Jalen was a player here. They would have to, come to a conclusion of whether or not it's worth bringing him into the building, and then talk to his agent, see if there's an extension. Maybe you add 2 years to the deal and a couple of void years after that, guarantee what's there now, get him at a pretty decent number, kind of spread that out a little bit. Now you're cooking with grease because you got a player you know damn well you can win with if you're Jacksonville. I wouldn't have a problem with him doing it, not one iota. Not when it comes to guys being accountable. And I know that sounds funny coming from me talking about Jalen to a bunch of people that feel like he quit on the team, and I get that. But I'd be on board with it, 100% on board with it. For a day 3 pick, yep, I'd do it in a heartbeat. And I figure out a way to work it out, and I bring him back, and I'd see where he is and where he's at. But these people know him very, very well. They saw him in a winning environment. The fans and anybody who's in the organization here or in the media saw Jalen in a losing environment. So there's a little bit of stuff that you have to sit and discuss when it comes down to it. Just keep him away from Baltimore, Philly, and Buffalo if you're trying to win. Because if you don't, he's going to go to one of those places if they can afford him. And all I can say is, oh man, don't just, you're giving somebody a chance to win a championship if you just let him go to a team that's already very, very close. I heard the Rams are even interested in bringing him back. So, hey, it is what it is. We'll see. I'm on board with it. I know a lot of people around here probably wouldn't be, but we'll just see how that all works out. Whatever happens with it, we'll be here to give it to you here on Locked On NFL. And Locked On NFL Draft is here for you for at least another week, man, to help you break down some of these prospects. Got tired of talking about the same day 1 or day 2 guys that you can sit and name without even looking at a big board? Those day 3 picks are more challenging. The Jaguars have 6 of them. So guess what? Or at least 5 of them you can be a part of. No, they got 6. That's right. You want to know who they're going to pick, who can help this team. And James Gladstone has a real good history of being able to make guys come in who were picked on day 3 and have them be contributors. So it's always good to watch Locked On NFL because you'll get names that you don't know and become more familiar with them before the draft. All right, you guys take care. Thank you for spending 30 minutes with me today. I appreciate it. We'll see you the next time here on Locked On Jaguars.